Hi everyone, so next up for this video is going to be a data question. So remember, data questions are any of the ones that have tables or graphs in them, where essentially we're trying to pull out the information for the table in order to support some sort of claim or provide support for an example, anything like that. So let's take a look at one of those. So we can see here that we have our question down here. So which choice most effectively uses data from the table to complete the example? So when thinking about these problems, we always want to make sure that we actually understand the data that's being presented to us. We can't answer the question unless we truly understand what they're trying to tell us. But let's start with the context from the passage to help us support our understanding. So some researchers studying Indigenous actors and filmmakers in the United States have turned their attention to the early days of cinema, particularly in the 1910s and 20s, when people like James Young Deere, Dark Cloud, Edwin Carew, and Lillian St. Cyr, known professionally as Red Wing, were involved in one way or another with numerous films. In fact, so many films and associated records for this era have been lost that counts of these four figures as output should be taken as bare minimums rather than totals. It's entirely possible, for example, that what? Okay, so what we're focusing on here is the fact that these records have been lost, so these four figures as output should be taken as bare minimums rather than totals. All right, so that's what we want to provide an example of and support with data from the table. So let's take a look at the table. So it looks like on the left here we have these four actors that were just mentioned, the years they were acting, and then what they're credited for, essentially. But we know from the passage that these numbers should be lower than they actually are. So this is what they have record of them being in, but they lost a lot of records, so their actual numbers should be much higher. So let's take a look at our choices here. So we're completing the example about this discrepancy in the output. So let's see, we have A. Dark Cloud acted in significantly fewer films than did Lillian St. Cyr, who was credited with 66 performances. So let's see, is this information supported by the table? What do you think? So it looks like, yes, this is supported by the table. It does say that Dark Cloud acted in less films than she did, who was credited with 66. So that is true, but we also have to think about the question here. So we're talking about completing this example, which is specifically talking about this discrepancy in the output. So while this information in this choice is true, it does not support that example, so therefore it cannot be the right answer. So let's see with B. Edwin Carew's 47 credited acting roles includes only films made after 1934. So it does say in the table that he acted in 47 films. That's what they have credited him for. But it doesn't specifically say anywhere that they're from after 1934, especially since it says that his years active was from 1912 to 1934. So B would not be the best choice. So let's see C. So Lillian St. Cyr acted in far more than 66 films, and Edward Carew directed more than 58. Okay, so I like this phrase of far more in here because we are talking about how these are bare minimums rather than totals. Let's just double check that this matches the data in the table. So Lillian St. Cyr, 66 films, Edwin Carew directing 58. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that matches. So C seems like a good choice. Let's double check lastly with D though. So this says that Deere actually directed 33 films and acted in only 10. So it says Deere directed 35 in the table and acted in 33. So these numbers are actually lower than in the table, which is the opposite of what this example is trying to prove. So D would not be the best choice, which leaves us with C.